out of state and uproot their families or face termination from civil service. 2 to 5 days, that's it. 2 to 5 days to make a life-altering career decision. I don't think this is how we should be treating our patriotic career civilians. And my constituents are worried about the still uncertain merger of two critical commands, the Joint Munitions Command and the Army Sustainment Command, and what it means for their jobs and their missions. Secretary Driscoll, do you commit to notifying me and this committee before any additional workforce changes at Rock Island Arsenal, including from the merger at JMC and ASC?
Senator, to all of your remarks, and it was helpful meeting with you yesterday. Those populations, we aspired to do what was right. We aspired to be thoughtful. Giving 2 to 5 days is probably not sufficient for that decision in hindsight. And so my commitment to you is, after meeting with you, I went back, talked to the team, and we will try, if we have to do similar, have similar conversations, to give more time and more grace for people to make these big decisions. To your question, Senator, we will do our very best to include you in your office in any sort of hiring that we have to do for Rock Island.
America First Voice is back with another hard-hitting reaction. Today we're reacting to this Senate Armed Services Committee hearing where Senator Tammy Duckworth from Illinois sharply criticizes President Trump's deployment of the National Guard to Washington, D.C., claiming guardsmen are being forced away from their families for no valid mission and wasting taxpayer money. Let me tell you, Patriots, this is classic Democrat deflection and selective outrage while ignoring the real crime, homelessness, and security failures plaguing our nation's capital. If you believe the president has every right to secure Washington, D.C. and protect federal property, citizens, and government operations from chaos, smash that like button right now and subscribe. Let's dive in. Senator Duckworth goes after the deployment hard. She talks about guardsmen roving around the city in packs of 6, bored, picking up trash, or gardening, costing taxpayers $605 million in the upcoming fiscal year. She contrasts this with other priorities like preposition stocks in the Indo-Pacific or IVF treatments for military families, calling it a misuse of the military and American streets for political purposes. Here's my unfiltered take as a right-wing patriot and constitutional conservative.
Appreciated our meeting yesterday. Thank you. Especially when you committed to providing the families of the DCA crash victims the findings from any Army investigations without any additional administrative hurdles. From my seat on both this committee and Commerce, Science, and Transportation, I look forward to working with you to implement necessary reforms to make sure that our airspace is safe both for the flying public but also for our warfighters as well. I do want now to turn to the Army's organic industrial base. In my state, Rock Island Arsenal is home to critical manufacturing of munitions and equipment. The Joint Munitions Command, which delivers munitions to the battlefield, and the Army Sustainment Command, which drives the Army's logistics enterprise, to name only a few of the Arsenal's critical functions. So, as I mentioned to you, I was very concerned to hear in March that the Army was suddenly reassigning employees who manage our munitions and sustainment in the middle of a war. Over the past 2 months, I've heard from constituents who, instead of focusing on their missions, were thrust into personal turmoil by the Army through a hasty personnel campaign. In March, as many as 155 civilian workers at Rock Island, many of whom are veterans themselves, were told, and I quote, that they were surplus employees, end quote. And they were left in limbo for weeks, worried that they would lose their jobs, with many only being told later, much later, weeks later, never mind. Some of these so-called surplus employees were given only 2 to 5 days to accept a job out of state and uproot their families or face termination from civil service. 2 to 5 days, that's it. 2 to 5 days to make a life-altering career decision. I don't think this is how we should be treating our patriotic career civilians. And my constituents are worried about the still uncertain merger of two critical commands, the Joint Munitions Command and the Army Sustainment Command, and what it means for their jobs and their missions. Secretary Driscoll, do you commit to notifying me and this committee before any additional workforce changes at Rock Island Arsenal, including from the merger at JMC and ASC?
Senator, to all of your remarks, and it was helpful meeting with you yesterday. Those populations, we aspired to do what was right. We aspired to be thoughtful. Giving 2 to 5 days is probably not sufficient for that decision in hindsight. And so my commitment to you is, after meeting with you, I went back, talked to the team, and we will try, if we have to do similar, have similar conversations, to give more time and more grace for people to make these big decisions. To your question, Senator, we will do our very best to include your office in any sort of hiring that we have to do for Rock Island.
Will you contact us before it actually takes place? Especially if you're terminating people?
Senator, I'm not intending to pause unnecessarily. I am trying to think through the process of if we had to get rid of one individual because of some sort
No,
of...
I mean like an effort.
Generally, the spirit of your question, yes.
Okay, thank you. Shifting gears to another issue, the domestic misuse of the military in American cities and the taxpayers' waste that has gone with it. Months ago, President Trump claimed that he mobilized 500 National Guardmen to reduce crime in Chicago, his words, but they never set foot in Chicago. They stayed confined to bases in Illinois because federal courts and our Supreme Court found their deployment illegal and cost taxpayers $21 million in the process. But President Trump's obsession with misusing the military in American streets is not over. And he, in fact, often threatens to deploy the Guard for political purposes, from saying he might send them to airports to lamenting he should have had them, and these are his words, seize the ballots in 2020. So this is not hypothetical. He said that. And don't forget, thousands of guardsmen are still in Washington, D.C. under no valid mission and also are doing so at great taxpayer expense. In fact, for fiscal year 2027, the president is requesting $605 million for D.C. deployment of the National Guard. Just outside the walls of this building, guardsmen are forced to be away from their families and jobs to rove around the city in packs of 6, bored, picking up trash, or gardening, all while the National Guard has actual missions to train for, like responding to natural disasters or preparing for combat. And I'd like to discuss some of the ways the Army could better use the $605 million that the president wants to waste on unnecessarily deploying the military to the nation's capital. Secretary Driscoll, yes or no, do you agree with the call in the Army Transformation Initiative to expand pre-positioned stocks in the Indo-Pacific?
Yes.
Well, for $605 million, the Army could fund 11 times the pre-positioned stocks for repair parts and supplies in Japan and Korea than it had last year. That's what $605 million could pay for. I'll give you another example. Yes or no, do you agree that soldiers and their families deserve access to affordable health care?
Yes.
For $605 million for that D.C. deployment, the Army could provide 15,125 military families IVF treatments. Instead of misusing the Guard to stoke his ego, President Trump could keep his campaign promise, and I quote, these are his words, he wants to pay for all costs associated with IVF treatments for our heroes. I urge Congress to invest these funds where it really matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Duckworth. I'd like to thank our witnesses for their testimony. 20 members have been able to ask questions.
Senator Duckworth's criticism is partisan nonsense that completely misses the bigger picture. President Trump has every constitutional authority and responsibility to ensure the safety and security of the nation's capital. Washington, D.C. has been plagued by skyrocketing crime, homelessness, carjackings, and general disorder under years of Democrat control. Deploying the National Guard to restore order, protect federal buildings, support local law enforcement when needed, and deter unrest is responsible leadership, not misuse. As a patriot, I fully support using the National Guard to secure D.C. For years, we watched major cities burn and descend into chaos during 2020 while Democrat mayors and governors stood by or actively hindered law enforcement. When federal property was attacked, troops were necessary. The same principle applies now. If crime rates are high or threats to government functions exist, the president must act decisively. Guardsmen know deployments are part of service, just like overseas missions. Duckworth's focus on families rings hollow when her party's policies have led to record illegal immigration, fentanyl deaths tearing families apart, and urban crime destroying communities. The $605 million figure is typical Democrat scare tactics. Securing the Capitol is a core federal responsibility. Compare that cost to the trillions wasted on ineffective stimulus, foreign aid, green energy boondoggles, or improper payments under previous administrations. Prioritizing law and order in D.C. is far more important. Deeper opinion as a right-wing patriot. This hearing highlights the left's discomfort with strong law enforcement and order. Democrats push open borders and soft-on-crime policies everywhere, then complain when the federal government steps in to protect its own operations and the people in the Capitol. President Trump's approach, using the National Guard when necessary to restore order, is exactly what strong leadership looks like. Cities like Chicago, New York, San Francisco, and others have proven that defunding police and embracing progressive policies leads to disaster. D.C. should not be exempt. We need the National Guard focused on real missions, border support, disaster response, and domestic security when local authorities fail. Criticizing deployments while ignoring the underlying crime and chaos caused by progressive policies is hypocritical and dangerous. The Trump administration is delivering on promises of law and order. More deployments like this send a clear message: America will not tolerate chaos in its capital or anywhere else. Secure the capital, secure the border, secure our cities. Patriots, President Trump is right to secure Washington, D.C. Support strong national leadership that prioritizes safety, order, and American citizens over political narratives. Demand your representatives back policies that restore law and order instead of defending failure and chaos. If this hearing fired you up like it did me, comment below. Should the National Guard be used to secure D.C. from crime and disorder? Do you support Trump's strong stance on law and order? What's the biggest failure of Democrat crime policies you've seen? Smash like if you stand with President Trump and strong national security. Subscribe, hit the bell, and share with every patriot. We need secure borders, secure cities, a secure capital, and an unapologetic America first agenda. Stay vigilant. Stay strong. God bless our National Guard. God bless President Trump. And God bless the United States of America, the greatest nation on earth.